Ladies and gentlemen, let's read Gaming Sitcom video. Porting The Last of Us to the PlayStation 4 was hell. At least according to Naughty Dog's creative director, Neil Druckmann. Indeed, the poor guy was wishing they could just press a turn on PS4 mode button at one point. So it may seem a rather trivial task to port a game from the previous generation of consoles, the PlayStation 3 in this case, to a much more powerful machine. You would think, logically, without delving too deeply into it, that it would simply be a case of porting a few bits and pieces and maybe running a little bit of an optimization pass. Well, the PlayStation 3's architecture was actually fairly complicated, and this is explained during an interview with Edge. And I'll read out some poignant parts. We expected it to be hell, and it was hell. Well, at least he got what he asked for, or wished for. Just getting an image on screen, even an inferior one with shadows broken, lighting broken, and with it crashing every 30 seconds, that took a long time. These engineers are some of the best in the industry, and they optimized the game so much for the PS3's SPUs specifically. It was optimized on a binary level. But after shifting those things over, you have to go back to a high level, make sure that the systems are intact, and then optimize it again. I can't describe how difficult a task that is. And once it's running, well, you're then running versions side by side to make sure you didn't screw anything up in the process, like physics being slightly off, which throws the game off, or lighting being shifted, and all of a sudden it's drastically different looking. That's not improved by any means. We want to stay faithful while being better. And it's interesting that now, instead of this technical bottleneck, the bottleneck is, can we actually fit all this on the disc? How do you show it off on the internet? The next-gen game, you have this game running at 1080p and 60 frames a second, and then basically via the internet it becomes heavily compressed, and when you see it running on a big screen TV and you get all the high-res assets running smoothly, it'll be hard to go back to the previous version, but it's hard to show all that work and optimizations and artistry that goes with it. We tried putting a non-compressed version of the trailer running at 60 Hz for people to download, but it's several hundred megabytes, it's a huge file, and it's something we have to address. In addition to all of this, he went on to say that all of the cinematics are also running at 1080p and 60 frames a second, although for them to do this they had to re-render all of the cutscenes and everything else that obviously is an in-game assets, and they had to re-render all of that from scratch. Now, it's actually a very interesting and, I believe, poignant fact, because despite the fact that I heavily criticised certain aspects of The Last of Us when it was released on the PS3. I did love the game, by the way, I really did. But there were some things that were definitely off with the title, specifically regarding the performance. I've mentioned a couple of times that there were major performance issues with the game, particularly in areas where there was a lot of physics going on. I've mentioned that before, so I won't wax lyrically too much about this. But it shows you that just because you've got a more powerful platform doesn't necessarily mean when something's optimized so well for a particular and specific system, it's easy just to port it over, and of course, in this case, it wasn't. It's also a very good example of not necessarily optimization in terms of, oh look, we can get the frame rate faster, or we can have, more pixels on screen. Good old pixels. Who doesn't like more of them? But moreover, just a very small little change can massively screw up gameplay. Imagine, for example, that you have a certain section and an object has weight, right? Because all of objects in the world, physics and everything else, has certain weight or certain properties associated with it. So, if they accidentally screw up and have, I don't know, this is just a completely ridiculous example, but they make a car in one particular area so that it has like the weight of a piece of paper, it's not going to go too well. Similarly speaking, obviously, they need to make sure that the game world holds up, and things such as clipping and collision detection, enemy AI, all of that works. And you've got to remember that physics and artificial intelligence and much of this other stuff was actually being run on the PlayStation 3's SPUs, or synergistic processing units. Now, for those of you who are not too familiar with the PS3 cell, I would heavily encourage you, good sir or good lady, to check out my PS3 post-mortem analysis. You can just Google it on the channel, search for it on the channel. I must stop using Google as a synonym for said. It's not too accurate. Well, regardless anyway, I think you get the point. So search for it on the channel if you so want more information. But the basic bottom line is you've got two powerful, you've got one powerful processor which actually has two cores in the cell processor, and then that basically controls these little mini processors, which are basically super powerful vector processors, and they typically can handle things that normally the PS4's compute engine now handles. Unfortunately, they require a lot more management, and also you've got to remember the PS3 CPU was an in-order CPU as well. And it's kind of funny because I'm pretty sure it was Sucker Punch. Pretty sure it was either Sucker Punch or actually it was Naughty Dog themselves, but I believe it was Sucker Punch that actually commented the fact that it's actually an in-order processor in some ways makes the PS3 cell actually a little bit easier to optimize for, because it logically follows that it's a bit easier to predict what's actually going to be processed when, rather than out-of-order processor, which is the PS4's Jaguar. Indeed, one of the bigger parts of this, in fact it was Sucker Punch, I remember, because I was doing this for my infamous Second Son breakdown and post-mortem of like the second set of PDFs that were released. I'd recommend check them out if you want more information on this, if you're like a tech head. But actually one of them I think is featured right now on the channel, but if not, you can search for infamous Second Son on the channel. Or, in fact, you could do it on our shiny new looking website. I've actually done a bit of redesigning on that. It took me a long time to actually get the time to set aside. I was kind of working on little bits at a time in the background. Pain in the butt. Oh well, anyway, good old Internet Explorer is helping, of course. One thing rendered in in Chrome and Firefox and everything else just fine, and Internet Explorer was like, no, you've got a style wrong there. I was like, but Internet Explorer, and it was like, no. I was like, okay. So anyway, yeah, you can tell I'm just in a really random mood. Sorry, guys. So it's kind of funny because they actually stated that specifically the PS4's CPU actually can be a little bit hard to work with because of the performance issues which are associated with the fact it's, for all intents and purposes, a low performance and low power kind of CPU. Anyway, I think I've pretty much gotten off the topic of this video enough, so I'm going to leave you guys to it. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video, and obviously normal stuff, comment and all of that jazz. Yeah, so I'll see you soon, take care, and bye for now.